Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello. Oi. So let me tell you, I'll just come clean here. I was sort of exhausted yesterday. I was ready to go to bed by 9 o'clock. And then because I'm such a trooper and take my professional responsibilities seriously, I said, no, you must view the Republican debate and toggle back and forth to Donald Trump's fundraiser for veterans event. In order to do that, I ascertained that a glass of wine would not be remiss. The problem is that throughout the, I think I lasted an hour and a half, I continued to drink. I mean, what is a person to do when watching what I was watching? Granted, it was truly a form of self-medication. I wanted somehow to be removed in some way from what I was witnessing. I wanted to be sedated, as it were. Oh my God! So anyway, I was taking notes during it, and do you want to? Shall we run through my increasingly drunken notes? We absolutely have to. Okay, I can't even read some of them. Look at this one. Look at that, Celine. Yeah, I can't show it. I can't look. It's just like scribbles. Oh my God. It's like scribbles. Okay. Now, I'm going to assume that some of you also subjected yourselves, either because you're good citizens or because you're masochists or because you find the whole thing extraordinarily entertaining. At any rate, I thought, oh, yeah, I was watching some really bad old movie on Turner Classics. And I think I've seen every old movie in the world at least 20 times over. This was one I don't think I'd seen. So I was, and Joan Fontaine was playing an evil person in it. And so I was wanting to watch. And actually, I have to admit, it was my son who said, Mom, aren't you going to watch the debate? I thought, oh, no. Oh, God, yeah, the debate. So, I ferreted out the debate and then ferreted out Donald Trump, who CNN was showing. So you had both events. I can't remember who was talking, but it was just, I could not. So I zipped right over to Donald Trump. Flags! Joy! I couldn't tell what I was watching. And the first thing I wrote down is, oh my God, This has the feel of early Hitler rallies. Oh, God. Well, there was something about, you know what it was? It was because I don't know how, he mesmerizes people. People can't, it's like they're hanging on his every absurd word. And sometimes his words aren't absurd. And I toggled back to Fox, and they were going into a break, and there was all this, red, white, and blue graphic stuff going. Bzz and bzz and bzz. Oh, God. I'm looking at these two savvy camps. Fox News, that has remade the news in America. To say for the worse is not even beginning to get to the impact Fox has had on our news. Fox News on the one hand, and Donald Trump, who is he? He's a real estate guy who loves the spotlight and got into TV himself and does reality shows, and he's in hog heaven. But he knows how to put together a reality show. So, as does Fox. Because when Fox first did their first Republican debate, I said, oh my God, they've changed it forever. So it used to be serious debates where we all agreed we'd sit around and be sort of bored, but we'd pay attention and be adults, was now this sort of highly produced circus. And I was thinking, okay, does this come down to who has the best production values here? I went to Fox, I went to Trump. I went to Fox, I went to Trump. And it was like a duel. It was a split-screen duel between two masters of public manipulation by television. And then I wrote, if Goebbels had this. I couldn't get the Hitler stuff out of my head. There was something I was watching, and today, sober as a judge, I absolutely agree with my sense that we are witnessing in this election cycle, we are witnessing something potentially very dangerous. Very dangerous. And it doesn't really matter whether it's Trump. The people don't matter. It's what I'm seeing about how America, we the people, are being... I've often said that we stopped being citizens and became consumers. Well, this is another. Now, what we are to consume is this constant product on our screens coming at us, manipulating us, titillating us, entertaining us. We are losing our ability to sit quietly and listen to any sober human being explain why he or she should be the president of the United States. It's much more fun to watch Trump and all this stuff. Then, before I know it, he is reading names. And I realize what he's saying is so-and-so gave $500,000 to the wounded, not to the wounded warrior, to these vets. And he said, he's a fine man. I know him well. Great guy. We golfed together. I gave him a call. I said, your country needs you, blah, blah, blah. And look, I got $500,000 here. Everybody goes nuts. Then he says, I put $1 million in my... Everybody goes nuts. And in between all of this, he's taken shots at the others. He's explaining his platform. Somehow, from one of these guys who gave him money, he segues into China taking our jobs And you know what? I'm listening to what he's saying, and in my head, I'm thinking, I agree with him. He's right about this. He was saying, why should we be losing our jobs, our livelihoods, our quality of life to a Chinese worker? What about our American workers? And I'm thinking, yeah, who is shipping all those jobs over there? He is this far removed from Bernie Sanders. And then he talked about the rich. And he said, he was talking about capitalism and greed. He didn't say capitalism. But he was saying, I've been greedy. And he kept saying greed, 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 and how he was into greed. That's how he got so rich. And then he said, but now I want to be greedy for the United States. He's saying, I use my smarts to do all this stuff for my own self-aggrandizement. You know what? I got enough. I want to use those same skills and do it for you. The place went nuts. I wrote down right here, OMG. Do not underestimate the phenomenon we are witnessing. Those are not the ravings of an increasingly inebriated older woman. Well, they are. But they're right. Because in the sober light of day, I saw it. I was sitting there with my mouth hanging open. I went back to Fox. There they were. And here's what they looked like to me after watching. They looked like a bunch of losers. Exactly what he's always saying. A bunch of losers. Then I went back to Trump. And who's standing there next to him? Rick Santorum and Huckabee. Two other guys running for the presidency who are so far down in the polls they didn't get on to CNN's debate stage. They were there. Brilliant, I thought. Jeez, brilliant. I mean, you can write a book about the calculations being made by Santorum and by Huckabee and by Trump in that little coalition. So Santorum, Trump gives Santorum his podium. And Santorum's thinking, these are my audience. So he's getting in some licks and this and that, but also talking mostly about veterans. And he goes on and on and on. Trump's standing there like this. And finally Santorum stops. And I see Trump, and he looks at his watch. And I'm thinking, he's producing this. He's the producer. He's pissed off at Santorum right now because he slowed it down. He slowed his show down. God. Okay, now my notes are getting really squiggly here. Let's see. Fox News knew they were coming out on the losing end of this. They knew Trump was right. You keep hearing people say they like him because he tells the truth. He says what he's thinking and stuff. And when he says, if I don't show up, that debate goes, nobody wants to watch those losers. They want me. He pretty much proved that last night. At least with this viewer. But the ratings that are out this morning do show. That was the second Fox debate last night, was the second lowest viewership of any debate this season. It was less than half of their first debate audience. It was boring. Trump and Fox in cahoots initially up to the game, the entertainment game. And without him, it all fell flat. I don't think Bill O'Reilly practically begged Trump to go to the debate yesterday. I mean, before the debate, begging him. And Trump kept saying, no, I got this other thing now, I can't do it. Come on, you could. He was begging him. That was O'Reilly doing Roger Ailes' bidding. Meanwhile, off screen, there were all kinds of back and forths between Trump and Fox. Please don't. They knew that Trump was telling the truth. And he was going to destroy their debate. So, Trump won last night. There's no doubt about that. And in the split screen takedown, because this is very reminiscent of the kind of production values of wrestling, in the split screen takedown, Trump, by a mile, at one point, I could not believe what I was seeing. At one point, he's telling names of people who have, well, it was when he was still on the China thing, telling, who gave this, who gave that. And then he said, and so-and-so and so-and-so gave $500,000, and they're right here. And his lovely wife. Come on up here, you guys. And these two people come up onto the stage. The guy who gave the $500,000 looks like he's playing a shady kind of con artist out of Central Casting. I mean, I think he had on sunglasses, and he just looked smarmy. And Trump tells him to go say a few words, and he said, this guy's a great negotiator. He would make a great, he said he would make a great ambassador to China. He wouldn't let them get away with blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking at this smarmy-looking character who has enough money that he could give $500,000 to this effort. Trump saying this could be the guy he'd send to China to be a diplomat. Oh, my God, I thought. And more than once I put down, I hope this isn't a slippery slope. We are heading toward the Hunger Games. Do you know what I mean? Where we're all sheep, manipulated, where there's people with all the tools of this manipulation, and they're creating these productions. Now, I wouldn't have been able to watch any of this if CNN, and I understand MSNBC did the same thing, didn't carry it. Now, technically, they cut away on occasion and let their own talking heads talk. So they used it, but gave themselves cut-ins. Great for them. They had, who did I hear on CNN said? They had twice the audience last night that they did the night before in the same time slot. CNN made a journalistic deal with the devil because Trump couldn't have this stage if a competing network or two didn't give him the free airtime. He paid nothing for over an hour of free airtime. They knew he'd attract the audience. They went for it. They piggybacked on him. And they brought in a lot of advertising, and unbelievable. I have to tell you guys. This is going to be fascinating. Either Donald Trump is in fact going to win this nomination, and I'm beginning to really think that's what's going to happen, or there's going to be some extraordinary takedown engineered by, I don't know. I'm even starting to think somebody might kill him. You know, often when you're living right in the middle, right, can't see the forest for the trees. When you are living through a transformational moment, that moment might be a year or two, but a transformational moment, you rarely recognize it, acknowledge it, see it, because we just live our lives day to day. But I do think that what is happening this election is not a passing thing. I think we are beginning and certainly accelerating some kind of huge transformation. And it's worrisome, to say the least. What are your thoughts? I'm dying to hear what other people think of this. Did any of you dare watch it? Here's Chuck. Chuck, first I have one word for what we saw last night. Surreal. Yeah. As I switched from Fox to CNN and back again over and over, I finally asked myself, what am I doing? I'd fallen into the trap set last night by CNN, Fox, and Donald Trump. Shame on me. I turned it off and picked up a book. I just poured another drink. Those television events last night are evidence of one thing, writes Chuck. The voters of America have forgotten what it means to elect a president. They have forgotten what's at stake. The office of the president is now a joke. It might be. But yeah, we would be totally complicit if that's what's happened. And what is happening. And the little bit I saw of the Republican debate, I was totally uninterested. Totally uninterested. And I understand from what others are writing in its wake that this opportunity for Ted Cruz to be front and center and number one did not go well for him. And in fact, he didn't look good last night. Of course, I don't think he ever looks good. So you know who was at this thing? I got to get him on. We got to talk to him. The Post-Gazette has obviously sent Chris Potter, late of City Paper, and a wonderful contributor to this program. They've sent him off to Iowa. And he wrote the piece in the Post-Gazette today about the Trump rally. So he was there. I can't think of anyone I'd rather talk to about what he witnessed than Chris Potter. So if I hadn't been drunk, I would have made an effort to probably get him on the show this morning. I'm sorry. I wasn't drunk, all right. I'm just exaggerating a little bit.
Suffering this morning.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's all I got. I don't know. Yeah.
throwing in the towel.
What? I'm throwing in the towel. Let's see. It's 24 minutes in. I didn't know it was snowing. It's supposed to be like 60 degrees next week. Ha ha! I'm saying to the snow, you ain't gonna last. Nuh-uh. Okay, let's see. I might have some other things here to talk about. Not much. Here's a first sentence that gets your attention. Want to hear it? Dateline, Moscow. Russian prosecutors have sent a dissident performance artist, best known for having nailed his scrotum to Red Square, to a psychiatric hospital. Ouch. Ouch. I vaguely remember this. This was some time ago that he nailed his scrotum to the Red Square. We have a call. Hello?
Lynn, it's Mike from D.C.
Mike.
Have you moved on?
Yeah, but it's fine. I'm talking about a Russian performance artist who has been sent for psychiatric testing since he nailed his scrotum to Red Square.
Now that's some performance art. Talk about suffering for your craft.
Is that not something?
Wow.
But that's not why you called.
No, I called to say that, this media over the election isn't a circus. It's a reality show.
Yeah, it's totally a reality show.
And what I don't get is why, because Donald Trump, one of his advisors is the reality show producers from, You're Dumped, or whatever his name of the show was. And so why doesn't Hillary do that? Why doesn't she call, Home Shopping Network and say, hey, I want to have a reality show, bring in a producer, and her produce a reality show?
No, she...
Her on the...
You know what she needs? The producer of, what is that? Desperate Housewives?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they deal with, women and how you make women more interesting in their normal lives. And yeah.
And you can't tell me that they wouldn't be all over that. The only question, I guess, is she would be worried she couldn't control it.
Well, yeah. And she wouldn't stoop so low, perhaps. Hey, by the way, the New York Times today has a front page article about how Bill Clinton has taken to the hustings and how he's lost his flair. He's not the compelling speaker he once was. His voice is real sort of soft. You can barely hear him. They said 20 minutes in, people were checking their cell phones, that he just doesn't have the old oomph. And somebody said it's because of that open heart surgery and the fact that he's become a vegan. He's off on a whole other... I think it's probably true. He's he doesn't have that red meat in him anymore. And he's sort of zen-like, but it ain't Bill. Doesn't have the chemistry.
Interesting. You said once about Hillary that she's not well-liked, but apparently she has the same quality that he has, that when you shake her hand...
Yeah.
It's as if you're the only person in the room.
Yeah.
She doesn't come off wide that way to everybody.
In smaller groups, she apparently really shines.
Right. And you can see when she's on Ellen and when she's on Rachel Maddow, she really does come to life. And I look at that and I think, how could someone not like her?
Yeah.
And then, she talks at some grandiose speech and you see, oh, that's why. Which, by the way, I did exactly what you did last night. For about 10 minutes, I went back and forth and couldn't decide which I hated most, so I just turned it off. When Ted Cruz was talking,
number
one, his language was very verbose, and he was using monosyllabic words that half of his audience would not understand. I wish I would have written them down because I thought, why is he using that word, stupid idiot?
Wait, it wouldn't be monosyllabic. Monosyllabic would be one syllable. Polysyllabic.
Yeah.
Words like polysyllabic he was using.
Right. What did he use? He used disparate groups.
Uh-huh. It's a fine word.
Disparate groups. And I was like,
why don't you just say different?
That's not your audience who understands what that means. So, but it really was like watching Joe McCarthy. He's very, like, you want to call Hillary a robot. He's very, like, I don't even know what the word for him is.
It's amazing it's amazing how he does look like McCarthy, has the same kind of vibe, and it's just unsettling. I'm sorry. Unsettling.
But good for Donald Trump. I mean, I'm not a fan, and I certainly won't support him. But he knows he's got his thumb on the how Americans feel about entertainment and media.
Yep.
Why aren't we jumping on board? You and I can't be the only ones who see this. Why isn't anybody in Hillary's camp doing this? Or, you know what I mean?
Well, do we want to get on this? Do we want our politics to just give it up and become a reality show?
Do we have a choice?
It's like, The Bachelor. I mean, it's like whoever gets the rose at the end gets to take the oath of office.
Well, more people vote. I'm not sure this is correct, but do you see the number of people who vote for The Voice or the Amazing Singer thing?
Yeah.
Right?
500,000 more than vote for the president of the country.
Right.
Oh, No, but they can vote more than once. Don't they? Maybe that's what we should do, too. You can vote more than once for president.
Yeah, but you know what? Bernie Sanders is going to change all of that, and with his magic wand is going to make everything right with America without a single Republican vote. We're going to have centralized medicine, and the world is going to be wonderful. And I admire the guy. I do. And I agree with a lot of things he has to say.
But you're saying he doesn't have a chance in hell of doing all the things he says he's going to do.
Anything that he says he's going to do. There's no magic wand. This is politics. It's ugly and down and dirty.
But Hillary is like, she's into pragmatism and what can be done. And sorry, the country's moved on. That's boring. We want entertainment. We want big promises.
Did you hear when Donald brought up his friend and said he's going to make him the ambassador for China and make him negotiate, right? Lynn, for a second, I was like, yeah, wait a second. Why isn't the best negotiator in charge of that? And for a second, I had to say, wait a second, this is more complicated than closing a Nike deal. Right? I think he generally thinks that just put a businessman in there who knows how to negotiate and we'll get more from China. Not that trade and import and exports have a broader scope than just making a simple contract with a Nike shoe manufacturer.
Right.
And for a second, I was like, yeah, why can't we do that? So they speak to the most simplest, basic thought. Yeah. You're a loser.
Yeah.
We can do this better. And they're winning at it.
Well, I mean, he's absolutely tapped into something that it is true. The elites are totally deaf to, and that is average white Americans and their fear of what's happening to their world and their culture and their jobs and their children's future. And those are all legitimate concerns that, in fact, I can share. But for guys living, he's absolutely said to them, I know I don't live in your world, but I'm gonna help you do what I did. I can see, I'm now really starting to see the allure here. The certainty with which he speaks. The humor. that he throws in. I think he's masterful.
Rosie O'Donnell, when he attacked her, do you remember when he attacked Rosie O'Donnell? She lost a great opportunity. What she should have said to him was, "You're a much better comic than a politician." And he really is a good comic. Like what this whole thing started about was Megyn Kelly, when she was like, "You're attacking women. You said women are sluts," and he said, "Just Rosie O'Donnell." That's a really funny line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's a word for that, and I don't know what it is. There's a word for that thing you should have said that you didn't think of at the time. There's a word for that. It's called a something. Do you know what I mean? All those times you think, "Oh, man, I should have said bang." But it's too late because the moment has passed. There's a word for that. Why don't we know it? Because that happens to us so often. Hey, Mike, thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
Thank
Get back
you.
to scrotums.
Yes! Nailed
Bye.
scrotums. Goodbye. This guy nailed his scrotum to a crack in the cobblestones of Red Square to call attention. He's a true performance artist. To call attention to the submission of Russian men to Vladimir Putin's governance. Wow. The next year, he cut off part of his ear while sitting naked on the fence of the Sibursky Center and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they've had enough of this guy because he does get attention. Obviously, he has an extremely high pain threshold, I would think. When he speaks, he's very smart. So it's a true performance artist who's willing to do absolutely outrageous things, and now they're doing what the Soviets used to do. This Putin's Russia is so much like the horrors of the Soviet Union, with its disappearing people and revisionist histories and carting anyone who's saying or doing anything you don't like off to some psychiatric hospital where they're made into drooling vegetables. Oh, boy. Okay. Well, if nailed scrotums can't lift your spirits today, I'm afraid you've come to the wrong place. Henry writes, did you see the CNN reporter interview Trump in his plane prior to the... I've heard some of it. In that interview, Trump said that Fox called him multiple times yesterday apologizing and begging him to come to the debate. Later, CNN reported that they received a memo from Fox saying they did not call Trump multiple times. And Fox said that it was Trump who offered to come to the debate if Fox donated $5 million to the veterans that he was organizing, that he was raising money for last night. Henry writes, clearly Trump was caught in these lies last night, and do you hear anything about this today? No. All I want to say to you, Henry, is how do we know who's... Okay, so you're now disbelieving Donald Trump, but you are believing Fox. I don't take anything either of them say without, I don't know, having 2-3 sources. So who knows? If Fox says they didn't, Trump says they did, I got a feeling that both are not telling the entire truth, because it was quite clear yesterday that Fox was, up until almost the last minute, desperately trying to get Trump to show. On air, you saw Bill O'Reilly begging. So, Margie has summed it up. She says, this is interesting and fun. Well, yeah, but Margie, let's remember, we're trying to find and elect a president. A position that... George W. Bush. else we got? Happy birthday, Paul Long. Lynn, I thought of you this morning when I heard Larry Richard announce that today would have been Paul Long's 100th birthday. Oh. I loved him. I think he had a crush on me, too, if you want to know the truth. We were real pals. We liked each other so much. We sat together in the Channel 4 newsroom, and we had so much fun together. Talking about serious stuff. He was a smart guy. Smart guy. Anyway, Larry Richard went on to tell stories about Paul. Well, Larry Richard did the greatest Paul Long imitation. Just spot on, nails it. Oh, I wish I'd heard that. That would have been wonderful. He went on to tell about Paul and his brown suit that he always wore. Yeah, with stains all over it. He had stains all over his suit, his tie. It's true. And he'd go out and anchor the news, and I'd think, yes, yes. He told the story of how Paul went through a McDonald's drive-thru. It's true, guys. Such a funny story. He had never been at a McDonald's. I'm trying to remember who he was with. He was with a photographer, obviously. They were on their way driving to a story, and the photographer's hungry, and he says, hey, Paul, I gotta stop at the McDonald's drive-thru and get some. And they go to order, and what was it? Paul ordered... I know he ordered a beer, right? He did order a beer. He ordered a cheeseburger and a beer, yeah. I'll have a cheeseburger and a beer. And since we're paging through long gone media in Pittsburgh, Chris writes, also, it was 5 years that Doug passed away. 5 years this week. Wow. Time flies. I wish I had a better memory or I wish I'd written things down. Because, there were so many great stories. I did Paul my last good deed to him was at his funeral. I was asked to give a eulogy. And there was a minister there doing the ceremony, and I was shocked because Paul was the most strident atheist I've ever known. He ridiculed religion. He did things that I thought were actually way over the top and disrespectful. Every Ash Wednesday, when a lot of people in the newsroom would show up with ashes on their forehead, Paul invariably would take his big cigar, which was always sitting there, one you could still smoke, and he'd put his cigar, in the ashtray, and then put it on his head and walk on his forehead and walk around. And I said, Paul, but God should not have been invoked at his funeral. I'm looking at the casket there and thinking, man, I was just so hoping Paul would pop out of it and just pop this minister right in the nose. And so when I got up, I made clear that Paul was, I can't remember how, somewhere I have that eulogy, but I did it for Paul. He would not have been happy with how he was buried. Let me just put it that way. So I spoke for him, I think. Paul, he would have been 100. What a great character. Okay. I got this stuff here, and you know what? I'm not even interested in it. Why do I want to bore you with it? Do you want to hear an obit? Since we're on death. Concepcion Picciotto. Or Picciotto. But I think it's Picciotto. There's 2 C's. Wouldn't that be ch? She is believed to be the longest, single-handedly did the longest political protest in the United States of America, lasting over 30 years, in which she sat protesting in Lafayette Park outside the White House for the last 30 years. There's no one in D.C. who frequents that area who didn't see Concepcion. She was there just the other day. She had hand-lettered signs saying things like, "Read my lips, no new wars. Live by the bomb, die by the bomb." She was a peace activist, and she was there. Rain, snow, sleet, heat, it didn't matter. She was there every dang day. And there was some kind of a rule. They were trying to get people like her out of Lafayette Park. So there was a rule that if you had a little place in the park that you were on a regular basis, if you vacated it, even for a second, it would be taken down. And so she managed to get around that by organizing a network of volunteers who would hold the fort while she went to the bathroom or went to get, something to eat. Most people thought she was a little nuts, frankly, and she probably was. Ralph Nader liked her. Ralph Nader said this about her: not a single president, and there have been 5 presidents in that White House since she did her. Just 5 presidents in the last 30 years? Okay. Not one of the presidents ever walked across the street, said Nader, to meet her or to recognize her quest for peace. She had a quick appearance in Fahrenheit 9/11. That was, one of Michael Moore's movies. She was eccentric. She wore a wig. Over the wig, she wore a helmet. Over the helmet, she wore a headscarf. Oh, anyway. So there you have it. She's gone. She was 80 years old. Concepcion Picciotto, Spanish immigrant, transplanted New Yorker. So there you have it. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. I wanted to share. There's something here that's so horrible I refuse to share it with you. I don't even know why I thought that I would want to. Once you say that and then you don't, is that bad? It is. And Bob in Braddock says, Lynn, I don't know if you acknowledged the death of former KDK TV reporter Wayne Van Dyne last week. I did not, I don't think, and I have to tell you, I didn't really know Wayne. I didn't know him. Somehow our paths never crossed. What's interesting is Paul Long's daughter was married, I believe, to Wayne Van Dyne's brother. So Paul and the Van Dynes were, through marriage, somewhat family. But I can't share any Van Dyne stories because I didn't know his work, and I didn't know him. Everybody who I've ever talked to about him says he was the genuinely nicest guy you'd ever want to know. Genuinely nice. And I've never heard otherwise. So that I can attest to, I think. Now, someone sent me, Rich, right? Sent me this piece by Wendy Kaminer, who is a smart as hell woman. And she, I guess, is the one. What do you mean? Get lost. Go away. That's not like, okay. Wendy Kaminer. And this is about Trump's, why people are drawn to him. Why aren't I getting it? I'm getting something else. That's not what I wanted. I'm sorry, this is boring. Excuse me, I'm screwing up. I have it here somewhere else. Here. Okay, so this is not... Do you remember a jerk named Tucker Carlson? He used to be on CNN, right? He wore a little bow tie. He was a right-winger. What a jerk. Okay, so this isn't by Wendy Kaminer. This is by Tucker Carlson. And I think Kaminer put it out and said, I never thought I would say I agree with anything that Tucker Carlson said, but I do. And he's written a very smart piece about how the Republicans created Trump. And it's headline, Donald Trump is shocking, vulgar, and right. And, my dear fellow Republicans, he's all your fault. Tucker, I'm going to say a bad word here, and forgive me, but I'm just going to read from the article. I mean, she's saying, forgive me, I'm going to say a bad word, this woman who throws the F word around, like, yeah, because it's a word I really don't like, and I don't use. Anyway, Carlson writes, about 15 years ago, I said something nasty on CNN about Donald Trump's hair. I can't now remember the context. In any case, Trump saw it and left a message on my phone the next day. Here was the message. It's true you have better hair than I do, Trump said matter-of-factly, but I get more pussy than you do, and hung up. Carlson writes, at the time, I'd never met Trump, and I remember feeling amused but also surprised he'd say something like that. But now the pattern seems entirely familiar. The message had all the hallmarks of a Trump attack. Shocking, vulgar, and true. Yeah. So he goes into it, and he tells Republicans, Trump exists because you failed. He says, and then he goes into how the Republicans don't get. They have forgotten what conservatism is. They've gone so far to the side of serving the corporate interest that they've forgotten about the people that vote. And those people are scared. And as I said earlier, they're fearing for the future, for the country they knew, blah, 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 blah. Their conservatism has nothing to do with getting tax breaks for the rich. Their conservatism has nothing to do with shipping their jobs overseas. And he puts it right out there. And he says these people are thrilled to have someone saying to them what they think. You know, Trump says things that makes the Republicans go crazy. He says that the rich are too rich. He says the rich should be taxed more. He says, that's why I'm saying, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are both tapping into a lot of the same stuff for different audiences or disparate audiences, as Ted Cruz would say. And I'm not going to go into this whole thing, but he talks about how, you can't understand why the Christian voters are liking him. Let me explain this, you idiots. He talks about how totally out of touch the Republican establishment is. He said, if Trump is leading... Okay, wait. Trump is the ideal candidate to fight Washington corruption, not simply because he opposes it, but because he has personally participated in it. And that was one of the most amazing things I've ever heard Trump say when he said, yeah, sure. It was early on. I gave money to Hillary and Bill Clinton. I gave money to this Democrat and that Democrat. I give money to anybody who's got power. That's how you get them to do what you want them to do. He said, why do you think all those rich people give money? Most politicians will say, oh, there's no quid pro quo when I accept money from this group or that group. Oh, yes, there is. And we know there is. And Trump says it because he did it. He's not just a reformer. Like most effective populists, he's a whistleblower. And like most successful populists, he's a traitor to his class. Before he became the most ferocious enemy American business had ever known, Teddy Roosevelt was a rich guy. Right? It's easy to throw rocks at the rich guy's window. It's much more impressive when the rich guy throws his furniture through the window from the inside. So Carlson says, if Trump is leading a populist movement, many of his Republican critics have joined an elitist one. Deriding Trump is an act of class solidarity, visible evidence of refinement and proof that you live nowhere near a Walmart. Why are we so fixated on, well, I'm not going to, okay. And then he goes on to say he could win. And he says, and Trump likely has the best chance to beat Hillary Clinton. First, he's the only Republican who can meaningfully expand the voting base. Polls show us a surprisingly large number of Democrats open to Trump. That is true. That is true. It's an article of faith in Washington that Trump would tank the party's prospects with minority voters. I got news for you. How much further? They're already tanked. But the main reason Trump could win is because he's the only candidate hard enough to call Hillary's bluff. Republicans will say almost anything about her, but almost none challenge her basic competence. She may be evil, but she's tough and accomplished. This we know. But he thinks, could take her down. I don't know. I mean, we're in very strange waters, are we not? Wendy Kaminer agrees with Tucker Carlson. The reality is that a reality star could be the next president of the United States. Hey, we elected a grade B actor before. I remember thinking, you can't have like some bad actor be the president. Oh, yes, you can. And turns out he was beloved by many. So, I don't know. Interesting times. I think that's all I got. Yeah. I'm going to spare you some of this other stuff. It's so awful, and there's no reason why any of us have to. It was just some horrible people doing horrible things, and, you just want to... Okay, that was it. I'm sorry. It dribbled off. But I'll be back on Monday, and who knows what will happen between now and then. Whatever it is, we'll be talking about it. Have a good weekend.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.